Tick.
Good evening. How are you?
BBC Radio Manchester.
I'm Allan Beswick. This is the Allan Beswick Late Night Phone-In. The last one for me in June, but also the first one for me in June. Because I do tonight, then I do tomorrow night, and then I'm gone until the 1st of July. I know. Skiving or what? For the 4 weeks in between, you'll be well looked after by Connor, who you know extremely well, and by the fabulous Tracy, who you may have met when she stood in for me when we had technical problems a few weeks back. Anyway, that's who'll be standing in for me during the course of my trip. But I'm here tonight and tomorrow night. If you want to join us, the number is the same, 0800 218 2255. You can talk about absolutely anything. I really don't mind. You just pick it up and have your say. Dead easy. The subject matter is yours. I don't get involved in it at all until you arrive and tell me what it is you want to talk about, which may be something of supreme importance to you or to everybody. It may be something of no importance to anybody except you. It may be absolutely brilliant. It may be absolutely tedious. It's all there. I think I said Tracy, and if I did, she'll thump me. I meant Stacy. Anyway, there we are. So it'll be Stacy standing in for me. So where were we? Well, we were here on 0800 218 2255 right through until 1 o'clock in the morning. You can talk about absolutely anything. It's dead easy. And the team tonight, well, we've got Jane producing, Marlon taking the calls, Lucy working the buttons, me talking the rubbish, as is my wont. And you, with all the wisdom, humour and everything else. If you've got any jokes to tell, you've got any songs to sing, or if you want to talk about the issues of the day, some of which may be this sort of thing that appeared in the papers recently. Mail journalist says that the ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson is being thrown to the wolves, and it's an unedifying spectacle. And well, he might be, but that doesn't mean it's not deserved, and nor does it stop him being such fun. The Daily Mail also, which is of course the very essence of impartiality on matters relating to immigration, claims that some migrants have complained that their 3-star hotel is simply not good enough. Now, I have broader views about immigration than does the Daily Mail. But if it is true, there is a little bit of me that says the old expression beggars can't be choosers might apply, and perhaps a hostel in Rwanda is ready to try to please our guests if they don't like it well enough here. It seems a cruel and non-Beswick thing to say, but it does cross your mind. Meanwhile, the Labour Party, which you might recall, promised not to introduce university fees for students, but then did, now warns that reducing students' repayments on the loans that they have to take out in order to get a degree will push up taxes. Free education for all? A failed dream. Favourite headline today was from Sky News. One-legged British crime boss jailed after 5 years on the run. Not a bad trick. And then the boss of a children's charity that has Princess Kate as a patron has been convicted for murder. In the past, of course. Paul Carberry, for it is he, as a 16-year-old in 1979, was convicted of stabbing a man to death whilst both of them were on a train. He did his time, he went to prison, found guilty, sent to prison, and now he's out and runs Action for Children. Interesting question, isn't it? Is this a case of well done the prison service for rehabilitating a serious criminal, or is it a case of softy gone too far? You tell me. It's interesting. And still with the royals, because that kind of was, wasn't it? Prince Charles, not, I may say, a noted swimmer really, has had the heating turned down in the Buckingham Palace swimming pool. Unfortunately, he didn't warn the staff, and a number of men who used the pool got a terrible shock of their lives when they got out the pool. They thought their willies had dropped. Because it's gone. Actually, there's all feeling, don't you, in cold water. The whole lot of it just disappears. 0800 218 2255. Did you watch the game today? By that I mean the FA Cup final between Manchester City and Manchester United, and City won 2-1. and quite extraordinary. I watched it. I tell a lie. I watched 2/3 of it. I had to do something halfway through the second half and considered that a release. But it was quite exciting, and I mean, a goal in 12 seconds, you don't see that often, do you? I believe, I didn't actually count them myself, but I believe there were just 4 kicks, kick off and then kick back, and then forward and in the net. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. You want to talk about that, you're more than welcome. Was it a good game for you, whatever side you were on? Were you sat in Burnley thinking, who gives us stuff? 0800 218 2255. That's kind of the way, though, isn't it? Who cares? Manchester, fine. Nobody else cares, or do they? How do Ted?
All right, Alan, kid. Just to say, today, Alan.
Yes, yeah.
Today's the Immaculate Conception anniversary.
It's the what?
The Immaculate Conception.
Oh, is it?
It's today, anniversary.
Right. I didn't know that.
Well, that's true. Like, you can have a look on your mobile phone.
I wasn't doubting you. I'm quite prepared to accept that big feast of the Immaculate Conception.
Just to say, Alan, fleas, Alan? Fleas.
Fleas?
Yeah, fleas, yeah.
If you pardon the expression, that's quite a leap from the Immaculate Conception, but I am aware of fleas. Indeed, I've had them as company more than once.
Well, you don't see many of them now, do you?
Well, I've not seen any. I've not seen any for a very long time, but I assure you they are still there.
Well, see, fleas, you could say they're like little vampires, aren't they?
Little magpies?
Little vampires.
Oh, I'm sorry. I suppose you could, yes. Do they feed on blood, or do they just... I don't know what they do. I know they make you itch.
You put the needle in what they've got, like, and then suck the blood. That's like vampires, innit?
I don't know that vampires stick you with a needle in and do it, but I can understand the parallel you're drawing, yes.
Well, you could say fleas are vampires, like, aren't they? I mean, the Black Plague... Using
a very, very broad interpretation of the word vampire, I suppose you could.
Well, the Black Plague was caused by the flea, weren't it?
That is one of the arguments, yes.
So, therefore, the flea is a type of vampire, isn't it?
Well, as I say, you're entitled to accept that interpretation of it if you wish. I don't know whether other people would say it was a vampire as such, but yeah, I suppose it is, rather like the vampire bat, which got its name because it was alleged to feed on blood, but apparently doesn't. Feeds on fruit, which is...
Alan, have you got... Where you live around your area, have you got bats around your area?
Well, wherever one lives, a fact is a fact, wherever one lives.
Well, I lived in this house for a week with 2 of the lads. And I was sleeping in the bedroom, and they had these open doors towards the veranda. I put the mattress on the veranda, and hanging round me were bats flying round me.
Good Lord. I don't know what to say to that, Ted, but it's lovely to hear from you. Have a good night. How do Trevor?
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's only something that there's some great podcasts on BBC Sounds. I've been listening to some of them, and there's one at the moment called Secret History of World War II.
Right.
And the various people who've done things for the British against the Germans in the war, I presume, and other things like that. And one lady, talking about one-legged people, there was one lady who shot herself in the foot in 1936 in Greece because she was well-to-do and she was going hunting for a certain duck. They had to cut her leg off, her left leg, and she thought, well, what can I do now? So she tried, when the war broke out, she returned to England. She got her telephone number off this man, and then I think she became one of the Baker Street regulars. And she went into France, and she recruited prostitutes and people like that as spies against the Germans, and they were infecting the Germans with syphilis and various diseases, whatever like that, to put them out of action. And eventually, she only got found out after she arranged a breakout. She arranged a breakout of all these prisoners. There was 12 SOE people, the Special Operations Executive people, in Vichy, France. So she got them transferred to an open prison. And then she arranged for them in 12 minutes to escape the actual prison camp. And she became a wanted person, and she had to leave. She called her leg Cuthbert because it was something that suffered a lot of problems because it was like a miracle worker for her. So she made her way across the Pyrenees, and it was rubbing against her leg, this wooden shoe. She got there into Spain, and she flew out back to Britain, and she couldn't go back to France with the British, so she went with the Americans, and she did some sabotage then for the D-Day landings. Virginia Hall, she was called. Amazing woman, just amazing.
Sounds amazing. I have a number of comments. I mean, getting prostitutes to infect German soldiers with syphilis, that sounds like biological warfare, doesn't it, in a way? But the other one is that the very beginning of the story, you said she shot herself in the foot.
Yeah.
I don't think you meant that metaphorically. So what was the purpose of that?
She was a well-to-do lady, a very well-to-do American family, but she wanted to join the civil service for the American civil service. So she eventually wound up in Greece, and she was out hunting, and she fell over in the swamp and shot herself in the left foot. And they said, "I can't say it any other way." Well,
now I understand. It wasn't like some soldiers in the trenches where they did it to get out of the fighting, you know. So it was an accident.
It was remarkable.
Right.
She was just remarkable.
Yes.
And then there was another lady called Charity Adams, and she was the first African American lady who was made an officer in the American Army, and she arranged all the posts when there were backlogs of post for the American troops. Some of it was 3 years out of date because they have to change every 90 days, renew it every 90 days, whatever their position. And she arranged it all in Birmingham, England, and she had a massive warehouse with rats were all over the place. Her and her team, all African Americans, sorted it out. She arranged proper hotel stays for them because they didn't have any segregation in Britain, so they didn't allow that in Britain. So she fought for that for the troops. And eventually, when she'd done it all, and she told us a general that she wasn't going to step down and make her troops go out in other occupations, she went back to America. She could have stayed on the Pentagon. She didn't go to the Pentagon. She decided to finish her occupational psychology degree, and she went to teaching. So just amazing people, absolutely amazing. What a generation, God blimey.
Indeed, one wonders, and we hear the old soldiers and the like saying the youngsters of today would never do it, but I kind of think if they had to, they would.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, you wouldn't have thought that the privations that were endured by the fighters in the First and Second World Wars, you wouldn't have thought any of those young lads when they were going, well, not down the pit because they weren't allowed to go in the army if they went down the pit, but, when they were working on the buses or they were a joiner or a plumber or a coalman, you wouldn't have thought, he'll be a heroic individual in the trench. You wouldn't have thought that, but they did it.
Well, it's come the hour, cometh the man, Alan.
That is the expression, and it turns out it's wrong, but only in it's cometh the hour, cometh the man, or woman, from what you've just said. Or woman, cometh the hour, we'll get in trouble if we just say cometh the hour, cometh the letter pile here, Mike.
Well,
need that woman to sort the post.
Okay, Alan,
we'll need Charity Adams to sort the post. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you, bye.
0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say. How do Max?
Hello there, Alan.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just like to start off by giving a shout out to my wonderful girlfriend, Ellen.
Oh, don't do that. We don't do that. You'll end up getting cut off if you do that. So
sorry.
Don't be sorry, just don't do it. What are we going to talk about?
I just love that. The Philip Scofield situation. Do you, what are your opinions on it? Do you think he is guilty? Do you think he has done wrong?
Well, the trouble is you asked two questions there. You said, do I think he is guilty? Do I think he's done wrong? Guilty of what? He's not committed any offence, apparently. Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to think of, because I've seen a lot of people saying he hasn't done wrong as he's not committed a crime in their eyes. But I've also seen a lot of people saying he's grooming.
Well, a lot of people might have said that, but there's been no evidence proffered at that, even by the young man who he had the relationship with. He apparently has no complaints relating to the arrangement, if you like, the affair, if that's what we're going to call it. And so, without him thinking I was groomed, there appears to be no evidence that he was. I mean, we may find out more in the future, but as it stands presently, Scofield he's been stupid, but then what star isn't, you know? But he's certainly, at the moment, there is no evidence that he committed an offence. Lying to your boss and your colleagues, well, if everyone who lied to their boss and their colleagues got the sack, there'd be no bugger working.
Oh, I know that too well, Alan.
You said that with a certain feeling in your voice, Max. I'm not feeling well today, but 23 pints of lager the night before will do that, you know, or I'm going to my mum's funeral. That's the third time she's died, you know.
Don't call me out.
But that's how it is, isn't it? You know, so everyone who's lied to their boss, you might say that he's in the public eye. He has an obligation to behave in a different way and a better way than everybody else in society. But it's hard to say that. And I said last week, one of the things I think we ought to remember, I don't think it excuses anything really, but we ought to remember that he's been a celebrity since he was 14. A little boy. Yeah, he used to be a continuity announcer on children's telly with Gordon the Gopher, and he was very, very popular. And then he went into grown-up telly, and he's been popular ever since. And so he's always lived all of his formative years and his adult life. He's lived in this stupid celebrity style of life where, you know, you can do little wrong. You get away with all sorts of things as a celebrity. And so, you know, they get a rarefied view of what's the right behaviour, I suppose.
Do you think that's why there's been such a entourage of hate towards him now, because he was seen as a man who everyone loved coming through as a child to being as old as he is now?
I think it's partly that. There is this section of our society, and this isn't a criticism of it, it's just an observation, but there is a section of our society who applaud that old phrase, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And if you get national fame, then people start digging into your life in places where you might think they ought not to dig.
Yeah, I understand that. But
so, you know, I mean, certainly he's, as he said in his interview with the BBC, Waller, he said, my life's over, my career's over, I'm finished. And he's probably right, he is.
Do you think with that BBC interview it was best for him to pull out an e-cigarette to help his case, or do you think it just makes him look a bit immature and silly?
I didn't see the whole interview, so I didn't know that he'd pulled out an e-cigarette. I'm afraid I've only listened to and read highlights of the interview. I can't whip up the enthusiasm to listen to the whole damn thing. It's just another fallen celeb, and you know, it's rough on him, it's hard on him, it's hard on his family and his friends, and to a certain extent his colleagues, but quite frankly it's just a bit of celebrity mush. Who cares?
That's just a bit naff.
Yeah, something like that. Good on you, Max. I'll do Simon.
Alan, I want to talk about a bad train journey I've had with a friend of mine. It'll involve two platforms, two railway sort of stations, and can I go on? I went to Speedway, and my friend, her husband worked for railways, and when he died, she got a free pass. I actually gave her some money, but she took me over to Manchester to see Speedway. I gave her 20 quid so she could... right, and when we got there, I asked this lady, she would work there, and she comes into it again somehow, but can you tell us where Bellevue Station? And she went on the computer and she said 18 minutes past 11, so yeah, fine, it started at 12, that's alright. So, and then I went over to platform, right, and this chap, this is what I'm getting at, he said they don't call it Bellevue Station, they call it Ashbury Station, and it's at 10:51, so he gave me wrong information. We got on train, get off the first stop and my friend, she's got diabetes, she's going blind, her legs are all black, and it's one of them trains like Mind the Chasm, you know, they have some of them in Manchester, she just about got up, and I said, it took 6 or 7 minutes, just giggle a bit, have a laugh about nothing in particular, you get a bit braver. And then when we got off, I think it was that lady who'd give us the Bellevue. I said, can you help me with a run? And then we just about got off. Then we had 40 steps to go up over at railway and 40 to go down. I got her on a bus nicely, but she was an angel, that lady, because it was the same lady, I think, that helped me off. This train station was a mile from the ground. On the way back, it was a great match. I was talking to a Bellevue fan, and he pointed out Bellevue, and you could see it would. You might know these stations. It's in a pretty area, suburban. Ashbury, it's on Ashton New Ashton Road, and it's basically in the middle of nowhere. And I had to ask people where it was. But we had a fine match, but he needs a rackground. But I'm not saying that because somebody else might get blamed for it, Alan. And that's about it, really.
Okay, so basically your complaint is, it seems to be, and it sounds like I'm trivialising, and I apologise for that, I guess, but you seem to be saying your complaint is that the train station isn't near enough to where you wanted to go, and it didn't have the name you wanted it to have. No, I'm not saying that at all, Alan.
I'm sorry. That was one of them. One of them, I'm saying, she's got diabetes going, and she could have fell on the platform and got into a right mess. I said, she really could. Then we had 40 steps.
I understand that she could have fallen because of diabetes. It's a very, very debilitating condition for many. What I've not yet been able to grasp, and you'll put me right, I hope, what I've not yet been able to grasp is why the station platform is to blame for her possibly falling with diabetes.
No, he told me Ashby he said Bellevue Station wasn't called Bellevue. Well, it is. And he must have known, because he would give it tickets. He must have known it was Ashbury. It was one of them elevated trains, you know, they have a few in Manchester where they're knee high to a drop. And he sorts medical conditions. I think he did it on purpose, heartlessly. That's my complaint, not the train station. It's not really the platform. The train on the platform, it's the man who put us on that train who could see my friend. And he knew what he must have known that Bellevue existed in Ashbury, because he must do it every day. It was 10:51, that would be 18 minutes past 11.
Just so I know what the hell I'm thinking of, was it the train, or was it the metro?
Was it the train or what?
Or the metro?
No, it was train. It was train.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well I can tell you, Northern Rail, there's a Bellevue station. Bellevue railway station serves the area of Bellevue, surprisingly. So there is a Bellevue station, so I don't know why he told you there wasn't.
I don't know why he told me that either. I think he was making mischief, Alan, but somebody else could get blamed for it, so I'm not going to say it. Otherwise, I'd like him addressing down. What do you think you were playing at?
Well, you can't get a dressing down unless you tell somebody.
Yeah, but somebody else, he might have covered for. He said, "Go and have your break, John," and then he's.
Well, whoever is responsible isn't going to get a dressing down unless whoever is responsible's employer knows about it. So if you don't say anything, nothing will happen. If you say something, there may well be an investigation to find out who it is that gave you the wrong information and then take action about it. But if you say nothing, nothing will happen, inevitably.
I just don't want somebody else being blamed for it, Alan, because...
Well, I understand that, and that's a very honourable position. However, if you don't want somebody else to be blamed for it and therefore take no action, the railway will not know that it happened. So no action will be taken against the individual who is to blame.
I know, Alan, it's sort of a toss of a coin. I might do that whether I'm going to... I do sometimes, heads or tails, whether I'm going to do it. I don't want anybody who's not done it, but...
Well, we have to hope that we don't know his thoughts. You can guess at them by all means, but we don't know them. So the bosses won't know them. The bosses will only know at first what you tell them. And once they know what you tell them, they've got an obligation to find out what their employees did do and which employee it was, and was it the one who you think it is, or was he standing in for a mate, and if so, why? But they will investigate to find out what the story is, what happened and how it happened and why it happened, and then they'll report back to you. And if that means that somebody gets in trouble, then hard luck, shouldn't have done it.
Well, yeah, I'm not a spiteful person, and personally I'd like him. What do you think you're playing at? Because I
get that, but no one will say what do you think you're playing at until they know that something that he shouldn't be played at has been played. I mean, I promise you, the railway people aren't listening to this programme now thinking, I wonder who it was, we must follow that up. Why would they? They haven't had a complaint. So,
yeah, you might be right, and I might do it, yeah.
There's no might. Without the complaint, there will be no action. Because they don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, Alan, yeah.
So it's up to you. Yeah. But I'm not trying to talk you into getting somebody in trouble, but if you think they need a dressing down, then you're going to have to tell somebody at the railway what's gone on. Yeah,
you're right. I think I might do that, Alan, yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck with it. 0800 218 2255. You want to join us, you can. We're here till 1 o'clock. And we can talk about absolutely anything. How do Mike?
Calendarically speaking, Alan, you may not be surprised to hear that information given to you by your oft-caller Ted was entirely wrong. That is to say, if you're remotely interested, and this is genuine, the feast of the Immaculate Conception is actually on the 8th of December, not the 3rd of June.
Well, perhaps they just had a practice on the 3rd of June. Who knows?
I don't think so. Anyway, I've been intrigued in recent days to hear about the ramifications of Boris Johnson and his great willingness to hand over his personal documentation himself. I imagine you find this interesting. Can we examine why his motive might be to do this when the government is clearly at some embarrassment to avoid this happening?
Well, the first one we have to do is, do we believe him?
Oh, that he will hand over?
Yeah. Do we believe him?
Oh, I think he's probably got very definite motives in willingness to hand over.
Well, what would they be?
Isn't it that it's going to, assuming what I would have imagined you would say to me, isn't that it is to the likely profound embarrassment of his colleagues, his governmental colleagues, that he's willing to do this, as they are not.
Well, you have to consider... I mean, I don't know what his reasons are. I don't know anyone that, including Boris Johnson, that knows what his reasons are, to be honest. But let us just presume that what you say is correct. The only way it would embarrass his colleagues is if something untoward has happened. And if something untoward has happened, even if it was done by his colleagues, who were actually his underlings, there is that old expression, the buck stops here. Now, if he, whilst in power as Prime Minister, was aware of the misbehaviour of his underlings, he is the only person, in terms of the Cabinet, he is the only person who has the power to take action against those underlings. And clearly, he did not. So if he says, Rishi Sunak's the biggest liar since Crippen, and I knew then he was the biggest liar since Crippen, someone will say, well, what did you do about it? Well, on all the evidence, sir, you did nothing. So, I don't know. It may be that he's perfectly happy to have his character dragged through the mud again, because, let's face it, there's enough mud on it can't really gather anymore. But he might be perfectly happy to have his body dragged through the mud again, just so he can bring down the leadership so that he can be the leader again, because he clearly thinks one day he will be, and he clearly thinks he should be. So it's hard, isn't it? It's politics. It's a bag of liars talking tales about snakes in a sack.
It would seem so. But it is rather incredible to think of the enormous amount of documentation that any inquiry would have to go through. And I wonder if you'd like to speculate, how long is this inquiry supposed or scheduled to take?
I don't know whether it will have a schedule, because they don't even know yet the depth of the inquiry, as it were. Until they get all the material, they don't know. And these inquiries are rather bizarre in that they can and do often go on for years, and then once they are published, all the people that were in power at the time are no longer in power, so it's put on a shelf.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting at the other lunchtime when they interviewed, is he now Lord Levison, who did the press inquiry, and he sort of was beginning to imply, well, the report is still on the shelf. Will anybody ever do anything about it?
The only thing that inquiries seem to affect are the reflective look backwards when the historians want to check.
Yes.
You know, it rarely leads to major changes. I mean, look at the Hillsborough inquiry.
Oh dear.
That went on for years and years and years. And the outcome is, many people in Liverpool would say, utterly unsatisfactory. Mm. And there's so many of them. They just go on and on and on. Yeah. Because it's the old thing. It used to be the rules in courts that the prosecution had to give every single document to the defence. So the defence gets it, and they get every single document, including 327 interviews that the police did with somebody who no further action was taken because they weren't even a witness. You give them all that, and you stymie the defence. So now, I don't know whether it's changed properly, but now the prosecution has to give them all relevant papers. Well, who decides the relevance? And that's exactly the argument that's happening here.
Yes.
The Prime Minister, or the government, not the Prime Minister, the Cabinet Office is saying, we will give you all the relevant documents. And the inquiry chairperson is saying, who decides what's relevant? That's my job, not yours.
You might be able to help me with this one, because I've often wondered that these seemingly massive tomes come out periodically. Can one actually go and buy them on paper copy, hard copy?
It depends. Some of them are published, and those that are published you can buy. You used to be able to buy them from HMSO, the Majesty's Stationery Office.
Yes.
I don't know actually where you get them from now. There used to be a Majesty's Station Office in Piccadilly Square, but there's not anymore. And you could go in there and order copies of any piece of legislation that was still on file. You could order reports, and they often are available, but it will be up to the government of the day to decide, because they commission the inquiry eventually. They are the, if you like, the body of last resort, and they decide what's done with it.
And presumably you do have to pay. It's not a freebie by any means.
I wouldn't imagine it would be free. Most of them aren't.
Very expensive, I imagine.
Could be, but the people who want them for anything other than, you know, the fun of reading it, what joy it must be, and the people who want them are usually formal agencies such as, you know, those who wish to go through it, like the BBC will buy a copy without a doubt if it's available. But the idea, they belong to the government, and they can be put away, and they can be filed away, and the government can even decide on when, if ever, it rears its ugly head in public.
Probably the last question: Have you ever possessed one of these things?
Possessed, no, but I have seen one or two over the years. Not for me, but I've seen a couple of them that I've seen in BBC premises, for example, and you just think, who's going to read that? And they do read them. The BBC, if such a document was published, when this document is published, it will come out, and there will be 4 or 5 different people at ITV, at the Times, at the Guardian, at the BBC, who will sit there, and they will all take a section, and between them they will speed read it.
Yes.
And start pulling headlines out of it. That's the process by which it is done.
I suppose you look at the back for the appendices and the summary, don't you, for that? I've
never had the pleasure of having to do it, so I don't really know how they do it. But I know, you know, one person cannot read, you know, a 6-volume document, so they divide it up. And serious.
Just before I leave you, I had a wonderful time today. I went to Huddersfield, and rather inevitably to the market, and to one of my favourite stores where there's a chap. I think I probably mentioned him before. He sells kettles and pans and things, but his prime interest is actually in selling and buying radios. Though he seems to be on something of a hold at the moment. He showed us one of the biggest ghetto, probably, if you will forgive the name, the largest radio cassette I've ever seen. I think it was called the Cobra, and it had a radio, 2 cassette machines. I think you could record on both of them in this instance, and a CD. It was enormous, Alan. I'm not sure how I'd have got it back, but the fellow wouldn't sell it to me, however much money I offered him. It's a strange state of affairs, isn't it? I mean, he brings it every week, so with a sort of view to sell it, but he never goes, he never wants to part with it.
There you go. Who understands these people? I certainly don't.
No, I don't. I was very sad to come away empty-handed.
Right, I've got to tell you, I can't understand for the life of me why anyone would want to buy it.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, fine. I'm more interested in serviceability than beauty of equipment, no matter. I'm sure it matters to some.
It sounded great. I'd love to have had a big play with it forever.
Good Lord. Well, to each their own, Mike.
Okay.
Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. We're here till 1. Right now it's getting on for 20 to midnight. And if you want to join us, that's good. Feel free. How did Shafiq?
How are you, Alon? Yeah, some time ago, you mentioned about my right and 2 thumb. I have a right hand 6 finger. I have a 2 thumb, in my right hand. And I'm proud to say I have a right 2 thumb in myself. And, when I seen first time in my life, flashing away. in 1996, Northern Ireland flag. Northern Ireland flag is a right hand, and Borough Burnley Council flag is a right hand. In 1996, I seen this flag, and that time I seen whole wall, every country national flag. Then another one, my friend, and my niece born in is a 14 December. My sister born in 19 February. 14 December, His Majesty King George VI birthday. And 19 February, my sister's birthday, Andrew birthday. And 1st July, I came with my mom in this country, Diana birthday. And many unknown quantity, I thinking in 1996. And another one, Constitution, British Constitution. Is what Constitution ruling now, King Charles III now. And that Constitution I read in 1996. And then I say, I write to St. Vincent Palace one letter. Then what's come? Here Royal Highness Princess Beatrice come in my life. I mention Beatrice's name in doctor, front of doctor, consultant in hospital. They make me mental. They say, Beatrice is the royal. How will we can you marry to Princess Beatrice? Then I say, no, I write to. Then they discharged me about after 2 months. Then I came ill, psychotic person, mental health person. Then I don't know. Then my one childhood photograph, 2-year photograph, this photograph seen great-grandma, Queen Mother. And that time she thinking, the baby, it is our Jesus Christ. I don't know that time, my family was last 1400 years Muslim, and my soul reborn, I don't know that. And when 1998, their Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, they are flashing with God. God sent the message to Jesus Christ. Otherwise, this earth will be destroy human being each other. That time, Bill Clinton witnessed, even Putin witnessed, even Putin knew I have a 6 finger in right hand. Ban Ki-moon witnessed the one photograph in the United Nations table, my friend. I never lie. If I lie single word, my soul finish. When last 25 years I write to everywhere.
Shafiq, thank you very much indeed. I'm rather surprised that you said you've got 2 thumbs on your right hand. I wonder how many you've got on the left. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll do Bob.
Good evening.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about what I've heard on the media, radio, TV, about the fastest goal today.
Oh, yes.
I think that's the wrong description. I want to know, how fast was it? How quick was the ball going? How quick was the player?
Yes, grammatically, I'm afraid you are absolutely correct. It wasn't the fastest goal, it was the earliest in a match.
Or the soonest, yeah. But they keep saying the fastest goal.
Yeah, I know. It's the way language changes, Bob. You use it wrongly for a decade, and that turns it into being used correctly.
I suppose that's very true. I mean, when you look at the club we're talking about, who scored that. I mean, they were sort of a mid.
Hang on a minute. You have a duty as a pedant to be accurate. The club didn't score anything. The player scored it. The player scored it.
Right.
We pedants must work together in opposition. Sorry, Bob. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say they were a sort of a mid-table, no-hoper sort of outfit, and then a bit like Chelsea. I think it's all wrong where they've allowed billionaires to come in and sort of buy the game, because in the case of City, I mean, I suppose similar with Chelsea, because they were oligarchs and they fell foul, but because being Russian, but they seems, the human rights record of the country that's supporting them or bought them and supplying all the funds for them got an appalling human rights record, lack of freedom of speech. Now, premarital sex what's the penalty? 100 lashes. If you're found out drunk, 80 lashes. Well, you only get 80 lashes for that, which doesn't seem too bad. But is it true that City, or I won't name them, they already have, they are prepared to take anybody's money, or they sell the souls to the highest bidder? Same with Chelsea. Take anybody's money. Still seems wrong to me.
Well, it's not a case of taking anybody's money. These companies are often public limited companies, and therefore people are entitled to trade in the shares thereof, and sometimes trade in the shares 100% and buy the whole club. So you have to distinguish the football from the ownership, although they are inextricably linked, but you do have to distinguish between the two. The company just runs the business. It's just a business, and it's the business of well, sometimes it's the business of playing football or empowering people to play football. Sometimes it's the business of, look at me, I'm rich, I'm getting my rocks off, and quite a lot of that goes on. I find one of the things I find odd about football is that fans of the game, fans of a particular club, Manchester United is a very, very recent case in point. They're furious at the people who own their club. Yeah. And the reason they're furious at them isn't because they are American, but because those Americans will not put their money into the club so that the fans can watch a better standard of football. If they said, well, OK, we're going to treble the entrance fee so that we can afford to buy better players or make a better stadium, they'd go bloody up in arms. Premiership football fans seem to want rich people to pay for the fans to have a good time.
Well, everybody likes success, obviously. I mean,
everybody likes success. But if you support a team, surely you should support it financially, not just think, well, hooray, 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 you're absolutely brilliant. Now, you over there with £1 billion, give it to these players because they'll make my day a better one.
Well, that's exactly what happens.
I know that is exactly what happens, and that's one of the things that I find annoying about it.
Oh, yeah.
Football fans expect somebody else to pay for their fun.
Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Spurs, all those have been successful, but they haven't had money paid into them the way that City and Chelsea have. I believe, though, I heard quite a few years ago that they could almost, because the gate money is obviously useful, but the TV rights and all the sponsorship, they could let people in for free because they're getting so much money away from the ticket price.
Well, it's not an insignificant sum at some football grounds. I mean, I don't know how much it is to get into a league game at Manchester City or Manchester United, but I would imagine it's going to be in the 30 quid mark. Well, 75,000 times 30 quid plus all the catering, it's a lot of money.
And the people in the boxes paying more, sure. Yeah,
well, indeed, yes. But we're talking about an awful lot of money. It's not an insignificant sum. A Premiership match taking place at Old Trafford probably puts £2 million in the coffers. Well, there's 19 of them a year. That's 38 million quid. It's not insignificant.
Well, half the year they're at home, half the year they're away.
Well, that's why I said 19. They play 19 home games. Yeah.
So you said 38.
No.
So that's the situation we have. If you've got plenty of money, you can buy what you want. Almost the case, isn't it?
When was it not so?
No, it wasn't. True. The rich have it. Yeah.
When was it not so? I remember in the days when, some of the players were household names and they were getting paid 100 quid a week maximum, and the owners were doing all right. Thank you very much.
I believe in the old days, going back probably before our time, the players used to travel to the match on the same bus as the fans. It was that sort of situation.
Yeah.
When you predicted, like 200 years ago, that people could become a millionaire just by kicking a ball, I mean, I think it's gone completely out of proportion, to be quite honest.
I tend to agree with you, but if I had that skill and somebody said, look, the honourable thing to do is for me to give you, I don't know, 150,000 a year, you'll have a very, very comfortable life. But then again, I could give you £15 million a year, and I'll say, no, I don't think it's worth that. I'll just take the 150 grand.
Against my Beswick's principles, yeah. Beswick scored a goal, yeah. Good.
Yeah, Beswick in his life has never scored a goal, let me tell you, and has never seen money other than the money, just ordinary working money, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, we can sit and criticise it, but who amongst us would turn it down?
Not many would do.
I've got one of my hands here, and I don't think I'll need all the fingers to count them. But good on you, Bob. Stick to the pedantry, mate. It'll get us all through in the end. Have a good night. How do, William?
Hi, Alan.
Hiya.
I just want to phone up. I've watched a bit of that FA Cup game today.
Excellent.
And it was a fasted, was it? Goal scored, weren't it, today in an FA Cup final? When City scored,
as Bob just said, it wasn't the fastest because we don't know what speed the ball was travelling at, but it was the earliest in the match. 12 seconds. Yeah. The previous one, according to the commentators this afternoon, the previous one was something like 25 seconds. So less than half of that.
Yeah. But I also wanted to talk about, only for a minute, I've enjoyed the coverage on Radio Manchester, the build-up from last Monday right up to today. They haven't
left it alone, have they?
No, but I'm just praising them because I'm just saying that the presenters, the people who do the sport, the other people have done it. They've done a brilliant job, especially travelling all the way down there with the broadcasting in the studios all over the place. It's been great. I've enjoyed listening to it.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's been. But all I can say is it brings me back to the days many years ago when the other radio station in Manchester used to do all that at one time, years and years ago. When I was 16, I'm 62 now, and they don't do that anymore. So,
no, the truth is it's very, very expensive to do, so the commercial companies have moved away from that sort of coverage. And
it was a commercial radio station at the time when they did all that many years ago. But it was great to listen to live broadcast, and that's what I liked about it. All
right. Well, there's good news and bad news, William. Everybody knows by now, I suspect, that BBC Local Radio is going to change quite substantially in the foreseeable future, certainly sometime this year. And there will be fewer local programmes around the country. But one of the things that the men and women in suits in London have decided is that locally sport will be paramount. So there will still be local sport on your local station in the, after the changes. So Radio Lancashire, Merseyside, Manchester, Hull, all the rest of them. There will still be local sport. So that at least is not being altered massively, except perhaps to be enhanced.
Yeah, I've been listening to Radio Manchester now over 40 years.
Good Lord. That's only just longer than I've been sat here working in it.
And I can still remember it. No, I can still remember some of the presenters in them days even. But it is good. It's good when they still do it today. And yet the other radio station I won't mention, they did that at one time, but they don't do it anymore now.
Well, they've got to turn a profit, and because of the licence fee, the BBC hasn't a need to turn a profit. However, the BBC has had their licence fee savaged by the government over the years, and so some things have got to go. But good to hear from you, William. Glad you enjoyed the coverage. Dare I ask what side you were on during the game?
On BBC.
No, I don't mean what radio side. I mean what football side, what club?
What club?
What club were you sticking up for?
Oh, right. No, well, at City, really.
Okay. Well, happy day for you then. Good on you, William. Thanks, mate. 0800 218 2255. I'm not blowing trumpets there. It is the case that the sport on BBC Local Radio will be, if anything, more than less in the forthcoming changes to BBC Local Radio. We'll have to wait until all the ink on the contracts is signed and all of that, but it looks very much like there will be more of it rather than less of it. 0800 218 2255. How do Anthony?
Oh, good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
Just two things. I want to talk about NHS pay. I was in a hospital 3 weeks ago, and as I've been a Manchester United fan for 50 years, well, I don't know, about I'll just say this very briefly. 6-7 years ago, I picked up some old football programmes from a charity shop, something like Oxfam, for Manchester United from the late 50s, early 60s. And what I noticed were all the sponsors of Manchester United in the late 50s, early 60s were all local Manchester or Lancashire companies, firms, maybe one or two Cheshire, maybe an ice cream maker there. And it just makes you, I was looking through this and these programs, and I was fascinated. I just thought, no Americans, no Europeans, no big money, no real serious money. It was very much, and probably like Manchester City, who I used to see 50 years ago as well, I'm afraid. They were very much local teams.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United in the what you might call the glory days, although a lot of people would say just recently has been the glory days, but in the days of Charlton and all that lot, if I've got my history correctly, were owned by a local butcher.
Huh. Well, there we go.
And when the butcher retired or died, I know not which, his son took it over, and it was son, the son of the butcher then owned it, sold it off to what you might call business managers. Indeed, there was a bloke called, I think his name was Michael Knighton, who was the owner of Carlisle United, and he was very much to the fore and was a whisker away from buying Manchester United, and for some reason didn't do it, and then it was sold off. The Edwards family. Martin Edwards was the chairman stroke owner of Manchester United at the time. That was
he was there for a long time.
Well, his father before was the man that was there ages. Martin Edwards was there for quite a while. Nowhere near as long as his dad was Louis, I think. Good Lord, why do I know all this about football? The answer is, I was on BBC Radio Manchester in the early 80s when it was all going on. And then Martin Edwards decided to sell it as a going concern, as the expression goes. And then there was a lot of jiggery-pokery about who would buy it. For the life of me, I don't remember who bought it. It wasn't Martin Edwards, but somebody bought it. And once that happens, of course, it's then floated on the stock exchange, and then it's just a commodity to the people who invest in shares.
And hence, that's why you got the Glaziers.
Well, that's how you ended up with the Glaziers, yes. You know, they just bought it as an investment, and like a lot of other purchasers of high value properties and organisations, they buy it with borrowed money, and then the clubs or the business, whatever it is they buy, has to fund that loan, so they have a massive interest charge against their turnover. And
that's what's happened to United, isn't it?
Yeah, and then the shareholders still take their dividend. So they're taking out... I'm not just specifically talking about the Glaziers, because it happens in all sorts of businesses. They're taking out value in terms of dividends, whilst the club is paying massive amounts in interest. So that's 2 bites out of the club's turnover that it previously didn't have.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's business.
I know probably scores of Manchester United fans, and not one of them very happy about the Glazes being there and all this kind of
I know they're not. I know.
Jiggly pokery.
There's this palaver going on about who's going to own it in future. There's the guy, the richest man in Britain apparently, who's very interested in buying it, part of a consortium. And then there's some Middle Eastern potentate who's very interested in buying it, and I think they've both submitted bids now, sealed bids, and due diligence will be done, and all sorts of accountants and overpaid bean counters will decide who's the best bet. It's weird in the extreme.
I mean, I've got to be fair. I've heard interviews with both of these guys, and they are actually, they seem to me, quite genuine Manchester United fans.
Yes,
it's quite important and know what they're talking about. And
it is important. I mean, I know from my boyhood support of Warrington Rugby Club, and it's had its ups and downs dependent on how good the players were, like every other.
Still quite famous, so yeah.
Well, it's still very famous, yes. But a few years ago, a lad who, to be fair to him, has been Simon Moran, his name is, and he's been a fan of Manchester United since he was of Warrington Rugby Club since he was at school, and now he's very, very wealthy, so he bought the club.
Well.
Yeah, and still owns it. And as far as I understand it, and I have no access to the finances of the club, but as I understand it from all and sundry, he continues to put as much money in as the league will allow him.
Yeah.
Now, that's the kind of Svengali you want owning a club, not somebody in America who's going to suck as much money out of it as they can.
Which they've done, the Glazes, over the last 15 or so years. And,
so people say. As I say, I don't understand high finance. A very few people get rich.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, right, the more important issue I was going to bring up was, I don't know, 3 weeks ago I was in Arrow Park Hospital in the Wirral for a week with COVID-19, and I noticed, I've discussed some of this, I think, with you before, but some of the nurses were on basically minimum wage pay, or just above it, and they were working 12-hour shifts, and they'd do anything for you, 24/7, and I was very well looked after, and recovered. And but what the question I've got for you is, I was thinking, and I think I'm wasting my time, but I'm thinking of writing to the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary, and I'm going to ask. Some of these people need about a 40% pay rise. Not 29%, not 5%. And what they do, and they're on... I mean, I'll just give you a quick example. When I got my dinner at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was given basically a leisurely half an hour, 40 minutes to, have it, or maybe an hour as a patient. Most of these nurses only spent about 10 minutes. I always had a dedicated nurse to look after me. I'd get my dinner, and then I'd be finished off, and she said, I'll get my dinner. And then about 10, certainly not longer than 15 minutes later, she'd be back again. And I said, have you had your dinner? Jenny, whatever her name was. And, I had to hurry up about it. There was no one else to cover at this post, so, I had to wolf it down. And I was just thinking, and, again, she's one of the people just above the minimum wage. I was just thought, this is all very wrong, but am I wasting my time trying to Rishi Sunak and whoever the health minister is at the moment. I can't ever catch up with all the changes in the Conservative government over the last 3, 4, 5
the answer
years.
The answer to the question, are you wasting your time, is no and yes. If only you do it.
You say no and yes.
If only you do it, it'll change nothing. If everybody who believes the nurses should earn more wrote, and it turned out to be, 5 million letters arrives at number 10 Downing Street, that will cause them to think, this could be election losing. But if you write, you will get a very nice letter back that will say, we have spent this much. And that's the standard political answer to the question, you're not spending enough. So somebody says, you're not spending enough, and they write back and say, we spent £16 billion on this and £4 billion on that. And what they don't do is say, but of course, what it really needed was £74 billion, not the 22 we've just told you we're spending. So the only way you will change it by writing a letter, and I'm not encouraging it because that's not my role, but the only way you'll change it is if a lot of people write.
Right then.
If an MP gets one letter saying, I don't agree with this, if he's if he's a sort of committed campaigner for that subject, he might use your letter and say, only this day I received this very letter, But if 1,000 people write to the MP, he thinks, I better do something about this. And if every MP got 1,000 letters from their constituents, then they'd go to the House of Commons and one would stand up and say, I got 1,000 letters today. And another say, I got 1,000 letters. And another say, I got 1,000 letters. And somewhere along the line there'll be a Prime Minister soiling himself.
Yeah, the thing is that unless you've been kind of seriously ill, like I was, relatively seriously ill, you don't realise, and been stuck in a hospital for a week, you don't realise this situation. You just get on with your day-to-day life. And
I think there's a bigger problem. There is a detachment in our society between tax and NHS and other spending. Everybody wants... You won't find anyone... I tell a lie. You will find very, very few people who say the NHS has got too much money, it should be halved. You won't find many of those. But equally, you won't find many who say the NHS needs is more money. I will gladly pay more tax for them to have it.
Yeah, that's a difficult
What they'll actually say is they need more money, and him over there should pay more tax. Not me. Oh, I'm paying far too much. Whether it's a billionaire paying 4 and 9 pence a year, or whether it's a pauper paying 4 and 9 pence an hour, they will want somebody else to pay it. And until that is resolved as a concept, all the services provided by government will be in the hands of government and no one else. But that's just the way politics are. That's democracy for you.
Well, it's always a vote winner to cut taxes. And it has repercussions. And
if that means more people die, well, still, it's cheaper than letting them live. Have a good night, Anthony. 0800 218 2255, said the BBC's head of cynicism. If you want to join us, you can. How do Neil?
Oh, hello, Alan. I was just listening on the phone then while I went to come on. All related these, but next one now. Why I was thinking, why do some sportsmen, say footballers, rugby lads, you said, become very successful? Like I'm thinking of Dave Whelan, who used to play for Blackburn Rovers football, and then Wigan, and he opened a load of fitness centres, and he had a big sports clothing empire. Yeah. So I'm just wondering why.
I mean, Dave Whelan had, and still, I mean, the poor man suffers from Alzheimer's now, I believe, but had a very, very clever business brain. One of the great stunts of Dave Whelan, he used to have a supermarket. He used to have a market stall. That's what he did after he retired from football. And then he got a supermarket. And he started selling bread cheaper than he could buy it. So I don't know what the price. That's exactly what it was, a lost leader. Yeah. And all his competitors said, I can't sell bread for that price. Where the hell is he getting it from? I cannot sell bread for that price. I will lose on it. And Whelan's position was, I'll lose on that, but they'll come in the morning for their loaf, they'll buy a paper, they'll buy some butter, they'll buy some jam, they maybe pick up some porridge or cornflakes or whatever, and he turned into a very, very seriously rich man. He knew about a deal. He was clever.
That's it. Yeah, he's like the chap you mentioned at rugby, who's become a very wealthy chap, used to be a rugby player. Then what you mentioned, so is it related to being sportsman, give him a good idea how to become a businessman afterwards?
Well, Simon Moran, who I mentioned earlier, wasn't ever a sports person. He's a music mogul.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
He is the man who, after Take That, retired and split up and all the rest of it, and then suddenly they had a huge comeback. Well, the man that got them back together was Simon Moran. He was already very successful music impresario. Take That. And one year, the first year when he owned it, Warrington Rugby Club went to the cup final. He organised, win or lose, he organised a huge party in a posh hotel for the players and their family. A huge party to celebrate getting there, win or lose. They won, which was good. And they turned up.
He bought the club.
They turned up at the party, and they're all enjoying the party. And then the curtains opened on the stage, and the band started to play. It was Take That.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So the second part with that now is about rugby union and football. Football's been on today. Not being what is it? But so, why are referees saying your rugby team, Warrington? Why are referees more respected, I would suggest, in rugby than football?
They have better powers. They have considerably better powers, and they have never lost the tradition of the referee is sacrosanct. You believe him, you disbelieve him, it doesn't matter. And he will be supported by the rugby league or the rugby union. And so they have the power. It's a different game, so there are sanctions that the rugby referee can administer that a football referee can't. If a football referee gives a free kick, and the other side complains about it and says blah blah blah, then moving the ball 10 metres forward doesn't make unless it's in the other half, doesn't make the free kick any better. But in rugby it does. Rugby's a territorial game.
Yes.
And also if the only person who is the only two people on the pitch who are allowed to speak to the referee are the captains of the teams.
Yes.
Nobody else is. So if a forward is, a second row is penalised and he says, referee, come on, the referee has the power to say to him, we'll move this penalty 10 yards further forward. And he says, oh, come on, ref. He said, well, we'll move it 10 yards further forward. And if you speak again, you're going off. And a football referee can't do that. They don't have that power.
Yeah, so, but this is my third point. Alan, this is my third point is related, is that Nigel Owens, he was on the Celebrity Chaser night. But I always remember him, and I've always been a fan of his, and he's about 5 foot and 12 stone or something. But he was always great on the pitch, like someone would say, referee, red card, but then he said, come on you, and his captain had to come over, and he said, don't, he said, I'm the boss on this pitch. And if you know, that was before he came out. There's all but going on that all this blah blah what coming out and that. But He was still, I loved him, and then, so I think Nigel Owens are superb. And I remember one, I always finish off, Alan, if I may say, with a bit of a joke, well, not that he's not that, but I remember once with Nigel Owens when he was an international referee before he came out, I hate that term, and then whatever, and he come out, there was a line out, and he was where they had to throw it right in the middle, and they threw it to the stone side, one of the teams, about 4 foot to his side. He said, "I'm straighter than that." And it was so funny, it was glad because he got through. So thank you. I just thought I'd mention that. So
thank you very much. He was one of the best rugby union referees ever. He was a fantastic referee. How did Glenn?
Hello, everybody.
Very well.
What is that? President Putin is now saying he's thinking of making nuclear strikes on UK cities because we've been helping Ukraine. What have you heard that?
Well, he's not actually said that, but he's spoken around the Russians' ability to do that.
Like you said to me, you said he's on this programme, you don't think he'll let off nuclear weapons, is that right, Tom?
Are you asking me, is that right that he won't, or are you asking me, is it right that that's what I've said?
Well, we're hoping it won't happen, aren't we? I mean, sure, a lot of people hope to God that it doesn't happen. But what is that? Where is this war leading to? That's what I can't understand.
Nobody knows.
Is Putin going to sit down and talk? Or is he going to carry on fighting?
We don't know. The wars continue until either somebody is vanquished or somebody gets fed up.
Like obviously, there's all them Russian soldiers getting killed, and it's frightening. It really is. It's what you see on the news, and you just don't know what's happening. To anyone to think of using nuclear weapons must be evil. Killing millions of people.
One has to say, if people who use nuclear weapons are evil, there are only 2 nations in the world that have ever done so. One's the United States, and the other is their ally and joint developer of the weapon, the United Kingdom. So
do you not think that'll happen?
I don't think he'll use... I mean, it depends what you mean. He certainly, in my view, will not use what are known as basically weapons that can fly to great other parts of the world. But there is in use today, and that's on both sides, they are available, what are called field weapons, if you like. So weapons that have, for example, an anti-tank weapon that has a uranium point on it, so the edge, the very pointy end of the weapon is able to penetrate tanks better than does a steel weapon of the same size. So they do have nuclear-ish weapons. They're not interballistic and all of that, but they do have weapons that are called that have an element in them that is nuclear material, but it's not a nuclear explosion.
The Ukraine fighters, I believe they're doing quite well. They're actually bombing Russia, is that right?
Well, certainly Russia has suffered some bombings. What we don't know is who's doing it. Now the Russians say those drones that went off, that were shot down over Russia, over Moscow, the Russians say they were sent by the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian army says no, they weren't. And so the West is moving towards the belief that Russia sent them up themselves in order to discredit the Ukrainians. So you never know the truth the truth doesn't exist in war. It's just the things that people say that counts.
Do you think in the end, Alan, there'll be a peaceful solution?
Peaceful? Probably not. Will there be a solution where the fighting stops? Yes, of course there will.
Right. So you think the fight will stop there?
It will eventually, yes.
And how will that happen? Do you know?
It'll happen, as I said earlier, when one side is vanquished, or they decide we're not getting any further here, or the war will stop when the politics decide it should stop.
So you think eventually Putin will come to terms with he's not going to win this way match? Right,
I've no idea. I've no idea. But someone eventually will say no further. I mean, for example, the West, who are paying out billions of pounds a year for this war and suffering difficulties in their own economies, may well say, not doing that anymore. Imagine if Trump gets elected in the United States next year, I think it is. If he does, there's a reasonable chance, and it is only a small chance perhaps, that he'll say, we're not putting any more money into Ukraine. And if America doesn't, it'll be damned hard for the rest of NATO to fill the space left by America. So who knows?
Wait on. President Putin wants Ukraine. Why don't they give him Ukraine and all this fight will stop?
Well, because Ukraine doesn't want to be part of Russia.
The problem now, he's saying if he doesn't get what he wants, he could kill the whole planet with nuclear weapons.
Well, that is what he's saying. And if the West believed him, they may well take the view, OK, let him have it.
Well, but is Putin saying he has that work Ukraine belongs? Is that right?
I didn't understand that question. Say that again.
Well, I'm saying, President Putin thinks Ukraine belongs to Russia. Is that right? So he wants Ukraine.
Yes, that is correct. He believes it belongs to Russia.
Why don't they give him Ukraine and all this fight will stop?
Well, it won't. He will then say that something else belongs to Russia.
Right. So you mean
back before the Second World War, Germany marched into a place called the Sudetenland, and their argument was this has always been Germany. And the West, the Allies as we now call them, said, yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have done it. You're a very, very naughty man, Mr. Hitler, but don't go any further. Oh, I won't, he said. I won't go any further at all. And then he started eyeing up Poland. And the Americans said, don't you dare go into Poland. And Neville Chamberlain went to meet him and said, look, if you go into Poland, we're all going to be right peed off. And he said, don't you worry, I'll sign a piece of paper here, and it's a promise that I won't go into Poland. And the president, Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister flew back to London and got off his plane and said, I have in my hand a piece of paper signed this very morning by Herr Hitler, guaranteeing that he will not invade Poland. And then he did.
Do you think President Putin is a nice man? What do you think of him? To look him on TV, he doesn't look any over him, man.
I've never met him. I have no idea what he's like.
I see a picture of President Putin. He doesn't look an evil man. He looks a normal human being, doesn't he?
I've never seen a human being that I didn't think looked like a normal human being.
but what I'm saying, and how old is President Putin?
I don't know.
But what I'm saying, to look at the man on my phone pictures, he just looks like a normal man. He doesn't look evil. He doesn't have smile for himself, and he doesn't look a nasty man, does he?
That's a judgment. I've not got the equipment to make such a judgment. He just looks like another human being. He looks like everybody else.
Yeah, But there again, we've got all this trouble about Luna. It makes you wonder what's going on, doesn't it? It's like, you're President Putin. I know he can control Russia, but is someone telling him what to do? What? who's behind it all.
I don't think anyone's telling him what to do. I think he sees himself and has some credence in seeing himself as a supreme power in Russia. But there will be people, I don't know who they are, there will be people who disagree with him but aren't prepared to say so, otherwise they'll end up in prison.
It's all news, that Putin is now not a well man. He's got cancer.
Well, there are all sorts of stories about him, of course there are, and who knows what the truth is.
I'll be on that, Tom.
I'll do my best. Good on you, Glenn. 0800 218 2255. What's going to happen next in the Ukraine-Russia situation? I have no idea. There is an expression that one often hears, song. Every day hurts. So, not the message we want to convey, but nonetheless, it's a good song. And prior to that, of course, God only knows, with the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys were from the Surfing USA era, when surfing meant standing on the equivalent of an ironing board and being tossed about in the waves. Now, more often, it means sitting in front of a computer and basically reading bilge from all over the world. 0800 218 2255. How do, Jacqueline?
Good evening, Alan. Good music tonight. Good music. You know, I have mentioned this abandoned engineering thing on telly, and quite often it comes out with the what the Russians have done in different places with engineering and caused devastation and whatever. But did you know that also, you know what the Germans did to the Jews in the Second World War?
Indeed, yes.
The Russians did it in the First World War. Not quite on the scale, but they started it in the First World War.
I don't think they started it, but they certainly had a very serious difficulty, should we say, with Jewish people, the pogroms as they were called. Indeed, if ever you've listened to Fiddler on the Roof, that is set in the time of the pogroms. So yes, the hate of Jewish people has been around for a very, very long time, even in Shakespeare's day.
And yet, so many people are Christians, and they want Christmas, but Jesus was a Jew. It's not funny, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Jesus was a Jew, but the Jewish faith holds the view that, like all the other Abrahamic religions, in other words, religions based on the life, or, if you like, developing from the life of Abraham, believe that one day God will send the Messiah. And Christians believe that Jesus Christ of Nazareth was the Messiah, and Jewish people don't think the Messiah's got here yet. So they're still waiting for the Messiah, and so don't believe in the New Testament, because the New Testament is post-Messiah, and prior to that it's what we call the Old Testament, which Jewish people hold as their principal belief document.
But I can't understand why it's Russia who are so disgusting. They really are the epitome of, well, I don't know, garbage. Because there's nothing nice about them. They're not doing anything nice, are they?
Well,
they're just going on and...
We must distinguish between the Russian people, who are like peoples everywhere, and the Russian government.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Because the people are against the government in a lot of ways, but then because they're against it with the Ukraine war, no, not a war, the invasion, they're getting locked up wholesale, aren't they? By the Russians are locking...
I'm not aware of that, and the idea that the people of Russia are against the war in Ukraine I'm not sure that that is the case. All the reports seem to say that they believe the publicity put out by the media in Russia, which is government-controlled to most extent, and believe that they are fighting, the Russian soldiers, as it's put, are fighting against what we might call an insurgent nation called Ukraine. The Russians are not told that they are at war, that what is going on in Ukraine is not described by the Russian media as a war, but a special, I've forgotten the proper word for it now, but basically a special event that's taking place. It's not described as a war.
Well, it isn't a war, is it? Because the Ukrainians can't attack Russia. But Russia is going and trying to annihilate Ukraine.
Well,
so it's not a war, it's an invasion, isn't it?
Well, a war... invasion is a war is an invasion. They're similes.
Yeah, but Ukraine cannot attack Russia, can they?
It can. There's nothing to stop it attacking Russia. Indeed, there are allegations that it has done.
What, with a drone in Moscow?
Yes, that's one.
Maybe that was one of their own people. You don't know, do you?
We don't know. But what has happened, and I don't think anyone is doubting this, what has happened, according to reports, is that Ukrainian soldiers or soldiers fighting on behalf of Ukraine have crossed the border and done warlike things on the other side of the Russia-Ukraine border. So they can, and by all accounts do. But it is a war. It's hard to describe it as anything else when there are corpses with bullets in them all over the place. It's not pat a cake.
But I thought that was an invasion rather than a war.
Well, when
Russia have invaded
Ukraine. When Germany invaded Poland, was that a war?
Yeah, because that brought everybody else into it.
No. You say it's an invasion. It was an invasion, so it's only a war if somebody else gets involved.
Yeah.
Well, no.
I just wondered, because I'm not really well up on this, but as I say, when I watch the abandoned engineering and the things that these buildings, these complexes, whatever, by the Russians in all these different countries, it's pretty disgusting, really, isn't it? They really just, I don't know, they just don't seem to have any anything. They just seem to be attacking all the time and taking over, and they just want to be taking over everybody, even though the other people have been got away and said, well, that's it, we don't want to be part of you. Anyway, that's all.
Russia has been... Ukraine has been separate from Russia since... I mean, my modern history is poor, but to all intents and purposes, since the breakdown of the Soviet Union. And so they became...
Well, that's it, but they want it back, don't they?
Yes.
They want all of these places back into their...
yes.
But they don't want to be part of it.
Well, and so they steal it. They try to steal it. They moved into one area and succeeded. Nobody caused much trouble, so they thought, oh, well, this is easy, we'll have another bit. And it didn't turn out to be that way. Well, just for the record, I looked it up. The word war, here is a definition from the dictionary of the word war. A state of armed conflict. A state of armed conflict between different countries or different groups within a country. In other words, you can have civil war, and nobody invades there.
Yeah.
So, war. People at loggerheads with guns.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Okie dokie. Right. Thank you.
Sorry. How do Ted? How do Pauline?
Hello, Alan. I'm confused. I heard the news this morning and I don't know if they're legal or illegal immigrants put up in hotels in London, and they're going on the streets complaining they don't like the food. I can't believe what I hear, and the bathrooms are too small. Have you heard this?
Yes.
What's going on? Are they legal or illegal? I don't know.
I believe they are asylum seekers, and it's a moot point as to whether they're legal or not, because it is not illegal. It's not illegal to seek asylum, but to arrive in a country uninvited of itself is illegal, but to do it and seek asylum is not illegal. But they're asylum seekers, and our government describes them as illegal. And if our government describes them as that, then so be it.
But they come here and complain. Why don't they get back to their own country if they don't like the bath? It just sounds stupid to me. The bathrooms are small and they don't like the food. They're here £45 a week they get. More than I bloody get. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have swore. I'm sorry.
No, well, indeed, but I have to say that it's unlikely that you get less than £45 a week, to be honest.
But, I pay taxes.
No. I was merely saying, Pauline, when you said it's more than I get, that's not true.
No, I'm sorry. I have had a little bit to drink, but I just get enough.
I don't blame you.
I have a sister, and I hear and I listen to all what's going on, and I think this is ridiculous. We let our own we have our own people sleeping on the streets. We have people that need money, and these people come in and they get £45. I get more. I agree, I get more than that, but there are people that get less, and our own people, English people, are treated like dirt. Or am I wrong?
Well, there's too much. There's too much adjective in that. Our people are not treated like dirt. They're not treated as well as many others would like them to be treated, but they're not treated like dirt any more than the asylum seekers are treated like dirt. But yes, it does seem very, very. Should we be as polite as we can and say it seems very ungrateful to enter a country uninvited, to be given a hotel room and food and enough money to buy your shaving gear and, the gear that sort of puts body and soul together.
I understand that.
And then complain about it. That seems less than grateful.
This is what gets me, that they come here uninvited, like you say. We treat them the best we can, and yet they're still complaining. What more do they want?
Well, I'll tell you what most of them appear to want, and it's, in some people's view, rather bizarre that they're not allowed it, but what they'd like to do is work. What they'd like to do is have a job and go to work.
There's no work for people here now.
They're not allowed. They're not allowed to work.
Oh, they're not allowed.
They are forbidden. Asylum seekers.
I don't understand. I'm an old lady. I'm a stupid old lady. I understand.
No, you're not a stupid old lady. You're not a stupid old lady. You're entitled to your view as much as anybody, Pauline. But they are. Asylum seekers are forbidden from working, and there are many in our country now starting to say, why, given that we have a shortage of staff?
Yeah, why? Well, can you tell me why then?
Well, yes, I can tell you why. Traditionally, the idea of not letting asylum seekers have work has two reasons. One, it means that a British person can't do that job because an asylum seeker's doing it. And also, they don't want to encourage people to come to the country via what our country decides is illegally, because they know when they get here they'll get a job.
Oh, okay.
So it's those two reasons. You imagine if your family is living on £10 a week in a foreign land, and you come here and earn the minimum wage, and send £10 a week home, you survive on your minimum wage minus £10, but your family doubles its income.
Oh, right.
So it's that kind of equation.
So actually, what excuse, if I'm getting this wrong, people that come over here, they work here to send money to their families wherever.
No, to better themselves, or indeed to better their families. Just like when the boot was on the other foot and thousands of British workers couldn't get jobs in this country, they went all over the world to work. I mean, do you remember that very funny series on the telly, Auf Wiedersehen, Pet?
I didn't watch it, but
okay, I don't blame you, but it was very funny. But that was basically English workers going to Germany to work because there was no work here, so they went to Germany.
Right, okay.
Now, lots of people, they weren't seeking asylum. It was a different world, as it were, in that they were still within Europe and all the rest of it, but they were going abroad to do work because there wasn't enough work for them in this country. And it's been like that back and to for donkey's years.
Well, I remember when, I think it was from Italy, they came to work in the salt mines. I remember when the Irish came to do the roads. Yep. I remember, and the Filipinos came to do the nursing. I don't know whether Filipinos workers have gone there. We're still short of nurses, aren't we?
Yeah. And, you know, it's a very, very peculiar world. We talk about one world, but it isn't one, is it, really, Pauline?
I'm so confused with it all.
You want to try sitting in this chair, love? I'm utterly confused by it all.
I listen to you every night, Alan. I listen to you every night. And what you talk is sense, and that's why I spoke to you. I wanted to talk to you, because I just get confused with it all. I like the way... I know a lot of people do. I like it when you get an order, you should go off your bum and all that. It's just, I know it's not the right thing to say, but at least you haven't said it to me yet. I'm probably bad.
Not yet, no. It'll be coming soon, Pauline. You best go quick. Lovely to talk with you. Have a good evening. Thanks very much, Pauline. 0800 218 2255. You want to join us? That's great. We're here till 1 o'clock. It's getting on to, well, it's just after 10 to midnight, so there's just over an hour, and you'll be very, very welcome. How do, Ted?
All right, Alan. Just to say, I was outside the hospital. I won't say which hospital I was in. I was outside smoking a rollie. Anyway, this nurse came out with a chair with this woman, and this woman sat down in the chair. I looked at her, I thought, she's an American Indian woman. So it goes over to her. She's got a T-shirt of American Indian T-shirt there, man, on her. I said, you're an American Indian woman, aren't you? She said, yeah. I said to her, I'm sorry what my people done to your people. I said, do you forgive me? She said, yeah, I forgive you. She gave me a bracelet, Alan. Now, women, Alan, like I said there a few weeks back, women develop man's brains, don't they?
Yeah, we keep going through this, and it's repetitive to the point of being boring. They do in one way, but they don't in another. Women cannot procreate alone. It requires a male. That's the nature of humanity, and you and I discussing it till we're blue in the face will not change it. So have a good night, Ted. Thank you. 0800 218 2255. I went for a walk today. I like walking. I went for a stroll along what is a very, very... I'm not much of a beach person, but it's a very beautiful beach in Anglese. It's called Newburgh. If ever you go into Anglese and you want to spend time on a beautiful beach, then go to Newburgh. You go over the bridge I don't know which one it is, the left-hand bridge. There's two. You go over the left-hand bridge, get over there, turn left, and follow signs to Newburgh, and you eventually get to this beach. Now, you have to pay to park. It's £7 for the day. But that's that. But it is a beautiful beach, absolutely gorgeous. Walking along it with a little lad, 7 years of age, and he was doing what kids do, running off, picking stuff up, coming back. And he came back with a rock about the size of 2 cricket balls. And, nothing like a cricket ball, but this piece of rock. And it had all sorts of markings on it. It was actually quite pretty. And he said, look at this. And he showed me what, as I say, was a very, very interesting cricket ball. And me, being the smart ass that I am, said, wow, that is amazing. Perhaps it's fossilised dinosaur poo. I thought, give the kid a bit of fun, It's fossilised dinosaur poo. And he said, no, it's not. I've seen dinosaur poo. The exasperation, who was this clown in his voice, was killer. You're looking at me, you idiot. This isn't dinosaur. I have seen fossilised dinosaur, and this isn't it. This is just a bloody rock. Dear God. And it's fascinating. I mean, me and the internet, we don't get on. But the amount of random stuff, and sometimes not all that random stuff, that youngsters have, even 7-year-olds, is stunning. I wouldn't have known anything like that when I was 7. I'm sure I didn't know it today. It was just amazing. I mean, I'm not saying, oh, look at him, isn't he a smashing kid, and all that garbage. Loads of them do. It's just amazing. When the kids that are being brought up now with the resources that they have that we couldn't have dreamt about in our day, dear God, my grandma was glad when they put electric in. Exactly. Although she wouldn't have the loo inside, she thought it was disgusting, the idea of the loo inside the house. Oh, God, in that house? Are you mad? Times have changed, I know. But what the youngsters have today, the access they have. Look, I know there are poor kids that haven't got, their parents have got 2 halfpennies to rub together. They can only just keep the lights on, let alone buy laptops and iPads and mobile phones and all the rest of the rubbish. But for those that are not in that way, the access they have to stuff, to information, is mind-boggling. And more importantly, their understanding of it is I still don't understand the internet. It frightens me rigid half the time with what goes on. But it is an amazing resource for kids. Absolutely superb. I mean, this kid, 7 years of age, and he can recognise different stones and recognise different little creatures. He uses names that I've never heard of in a rock pool. You just think, good Lord, they're going to be absolutely brilliant. But of course, they're still going to look at old codgers who try to play a trick on them as idiots, and quite right too. But it's just amazing. They're so fortunate, and I hope the world stays peaceful and allows them to develop from that sense they've got now. And yes, the internet's full of crap. It really is full of bile and vile stuff. But the stuff that's out there, the good stuff, is, well, it's unsurpassed. It's just amazing. And kids, they are naturally like sponges, and all this stuff is going in. It's going to be a fantastic... I won't see it, but in 50 years' time, when that generation are running the world, I think it's been a damn sight better place than what we're living in now. And there's nothing too bad about there are faults, dear God, there are faults, and they are substantial, but it's not a crazily bad world at the moment, but it's going to be absolutely superb when they take over, isn't it? There you go. 0800 218 2255. I was just mesmerised. I'm very easily mesmerised. Here's John Lennon. He feels like starting over, and he did. it didn't last. DJs hate records like that. You don't have a secret stop. Because they're not always paying attention. You know, on the phone to the local restaurant. Can you send me a biryani? Or whatever the hell. And the record stop, they suddenly phone down. That's what they say, isn't it? That's how DJs talk. And then it starts up again. Because they weren't paying attention. Outrageous. So they don't like them false endings. I'm not bothered. I'm prepared to wait whilst, you know. So it stopped. Don't know what to say, so... Oh, start again. Never mind. I know. You've got to be relaxed about life, haven't you, really? 800 218 2255. How do Lillian?
Hello, Alan. I telephoned you the other day, but it was 1 o'clock when you were finishing.
Right.
And I said I'm a Morecambian, but I've moved from Morecambe 57 years ago, and I used to hear you on Radio Manchester.
Right.
And now I've just found you.
Excellent.
And the thing I like about you is your frankness and the inflection in your voice. Because if you're getting fed up with somebody, you let them know, don't you?
I didn't think so, but there you go.
I know, but I mean, I just think you're a nice man.
Oh dear. Well, there's not many would agree with that.
Well, probably not.
No.
But to his own. And now you've moved to Wales, haven't you? Are you
I
happy
now live
there?
in Wales, yes. I'm extremely happy. I'm happy everywhere I am. It's part of the delusion of life for me. I'm always happy.
Well, I think I said to you, I'm 13 times 7 minus 1. So I am an old lady of 90. But just to find you again, Alan, because you seem to have the most intimate conversations with the people that telephone you.
I think they're quite intimate also, yes. It's a privilege.
Good. So that's all I wanted to say, Alan.
All right, then.
And it's not newsworthy, is it?
Everything's newsworthy and nothing's newsworthy simultaneously. You read or see the news and you think, why is that newsworthy? Who cares about Boris bloody Johnson, you know?
I don't, but listen to this.
Exactly. Go on.
I don't watch television.
Good on you. Good on you.
Never watch television.
A wise
I
move.
like the radio.
Excellent.
I should do without a licence. But if people come to see me, they want the television on, don't they?
Well, tell them they can't have it on, because you haven't got one.
No, okay then. Anyway, I hope you don't mind me telephoning you.
I don't mind at all. It's the very essence of what I'm here for. But Lillian, lovely to hear from you. 0800 218 2255. Lillian says she's glad she's found me. It's worth pointing out that this is the last Saturday I'll do until the 1st of July, which I think is a Saturday, because I'm now off. Tomorrow night, I'm on tomorrow night, so that's not, well, it's actually tonight now, isn't it? But Sunday. Tonight, see, we've had the 3rd of June, and I did that the Saturday. I'm doing the 4th of June now, and again this evening at 10 o'clock, 10 to 1. And then I'm gallivanting then. I'm gone for a few weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4 weekends, so a month. And then I will be back on the 1st of July and the 2nd, and then onwards until whenever, who knows. So I'll be back on the 1st of July. But Stacy, the fabulous Stacy, will be sitting in the chair for some of that time. Stacy, you if you listen to Radio Manchester, you will have heard a good few times. But also she came to the wicket when we had technical difficulties, because I do this programme from home, and we had technical difficulties a few weeks back, and Stacey stepped in and did an admirable job, the swine. Yeah, she's very good. And also, you know, Connor, and I think Connor may be doing some of the programmes as well whilst I'm off. But the other team, the team that actually makes it all happen, will continue in the way, as always. You know, the Janes of this world, and the Tallets, and the Jasons, and the Marlons, and the Lucies, and all that. They'll all still be there. It'll just be me that's missing. So it'll be, well, considerably better, almost certainly. But that's what's happening in the non-too-distant. So I'll be back tonight at 10. I'm here till 1 o'clock anyway, but I'll be back tonight at 10. And then skedaggling for my trip to Canada and back, bleary-eyed and jet-lagged on the 1st of July. And in the meantime, you'll be able to have the time of your life with my stand-ins. They're not my stand-ins. They're not. That's a disgraceful thing to say about my colleagues. But they will be doing the programme when I am not, and in many people's eyes, a lot better and certainly a lot kinder. 0800 218 2255. This is a bit preachy. Can I tell you that before we start? And then if you sit there saying, what right has he got to say that? I fully understand. But the Home Secretary, as you know, has just owned up and paid a fine for speeding. And another cabinet minister rushed, perhaps sped, to her defence, saying that everybody speeds, which is why 250,000 people were done for it last year. Everybody speeds. Speeding is no longer, perhaps, which I can manage myself so very, very easily. 0800 218 2255. Jackie Wilson, your love lifts me higher and higher. And then he starts with the bass. Makes no higher, lower. It's a good song, though. It is. It's a shoulder rocker. If you sat down, obviously. If you stood up, you might dance.
Your love lifted me higher than I've ever been lifted before. So keep it up, quench my desire, and I'll be at your side forever.
Jackie Wilson, not the one that does the kids' books. That's a woman anyway. So this is a bloke, or was a bloke. Might still be a bloke. Don't know if he's dead or not. Anyway, a bloke doing the singy song. Right. Yeah. Newspapers. Sunday. Ooh. Sunday Express. Here you go. Autumn tax cuts to heal Britain. Tories on election alert as a Prime Minister looks to help hard-hit families. Oh, there's a thought. The election maybe not be as far away as you think. And there's a photograph of Holly Willoughby in a big straw hat and a swimming costume with her hands on her hips above the caption, Holly ponders her next move. Okay. The Star on Sunday, have a day off, psycho chatbots. Boffins warn artificial intelligence could wipe us all out with a COVID-style pandemic. Okay. Why would they want to? Who's going to pay the electric bill to keep them going? And the Sunday Times, there's a photograph of somebody called Dua Lipa, which is a nice name, and I believe she's a singer. I not knowingly heard her, but there you go. Sunak's £1 pound, yeah, that wouldn't surprise anybody. Sunak's £1 billion plan to fix the NHS by training thousands more doctors and nurses. £1 billion sounds like an awful lot of money, and it is, but it's only 2% of the NHS budget on a good day. I mean, it might be less than that, because 50 billion was what it was costing quite a while ago, so probably costing more than that now, but it's only 2% of the budget, so, you know, and it takes something like 7 years to train a doctor, and 3 years to train a nurse. So, you know, it's not going to be straight away, is it? Ukraine's new weapons plea to hit back at Putin. We need more firepower, and the EU still isn't doing enough, says a key Zelensky advisor, and Danker to sue the CBI over the sex case sacking. How do David?
Hello, Alan. I was just listening to you earlier on about driving and that. Couldn't agree more, actually. I mean, I've been driving for many years now, but I'm, you know, making more of a concerted effort to take more care on the roads. The roads are busier. There's a lot more obstacles, vehicles, etc. And the thought of, you know, being the cause of some horrendous fatal accident is just, you know, too much, really. So, yeah, better to go steadier, set out earlier, take care on the roads, and just, you know, keep your eyes out. You can't be too careful, actually. I was driving down a country lane only the other day, and there's literally a blind bend, you know, trees. I don't know why, Alan, but I thought to myself, there could be something round this bend, an object, something. I can't see it yet, and eventually it came into view. There was the vehicle stopped, must have broken down. I'd have been going a lot quicker. I almost certainly would have run into it. You know, so... And the thing is, to remember too that, I know it's not rained for a while, but your stopping distance is almost sort of twice the what it is when conditions are dry on the roads, and you really only have about under your tyre, each tyre about the size of the palm of your hand, contact with the road surface, and of course when it's wet, you've got that film of water, hence the sort of the aquaplaning. I mean, I'm not a driving expert. I've just been driving for a long time, and I think...
One of the questions, I don't know whether it still is, but one of the questions on a driving instructor's examination, there are a whole raft of them. I mean, it's like 10, or it was, about 10 pages back in the 70s. But one of the questions was, apart from ice, when are the roads at their most dangerous, the road surfaces at their most dangerous? Do you know the answer to that?
Well, I would have said when they're wet, but that's. I think there may be another answer.
Well, the specific answer at the time, and I can't see that it's changed at all. The specific answer, quite relevant at the moment, is after a long period of dry weather, the first film of rain. And if it's just, it's a downpour, that's not as bad as if it's just a little bit of drizzle onto a road that has had cars going over it for a hot weather, because it's just covered in grease. And a little bit of moisture with the grease.
Yeah.
The only thing worse than that is ice.
Absolutely, Alan. The other thing too, you can, I don't know so much now with the modern trucks, but perhaps some of the older trucks, you'd get like diesel spillage from the filler neck.
Yeah, you get that from time to time. Yeah,
on a bend. Yeah, and that can sort of compound that problem. You just mentioned that potential problem, and having helped motorcyclists too. I mean, I've had a go on one or two of those, and never again.
my driving instructor taught me 2 mantras, and they were always drive as if you're coming the other way.
Yeah.
So if you're over the white line, the bloke coming the other way, if he drives like you, so was he or she. So there was that. And that's a concern. And the other one is an often quoted one by driving instructors, and that is better to be late in this world than early in the next.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
Yes, so true. Very wise words.
Indeed.
Indeed. Well worth bearing in mind. You really, as I say, you can't be too careful, Alan, out there. You can only try your best. And I go into North Wales quite a bit. And, I know the road quite well. And when the speed limit drops right down to 50 as you enter as you come into Wales, you drop down to 50 miles an hour. And you're warned.
Yeah, that's at Queen's Ferry when you're coming in from the northwest of England.
That's exactly, yeah.
Just as you hit
and
Queen's
so many
Ferry.
people are doing considerably more than that. And they slow down. But yeah, it is. It is. That's right. Yeah, Queen's Ferry, better. Yeah. Just another subject. Completely different. Was I don't know whether you ever knew. I mean, sort of before my time. But apparently there were lots of cow keepers in Liverpool a lot of them were farmers from Yorkshire, and came down and kept cattle and ran sort of dairy businesses. I guess it was more profitable being in Liverpool City than sort of in the wilds of Yorkshire, as beautiful as it is up there. And
traditionally, farms were close to people because they didn't have the transport abilities that they have now. And yes, there were dairies that had their own herds within cities. I mean, one presumes they weren't large herds.
No. Because my mother, she said, I remember seeing cattle in the streets in Liverpool. That'd be, I don't know, sort of post-war years, whatever, 1950s and that. But I know I spoke to some of the old farmers that lived on and worked on the outskirts of Liverpool, way back, and what they did and their sort of grandfathers used to do was, it was the days of the horses and wagons. They'd take a load of produce down to Liverpool market at, say, 2 in the morning, unload the produce, and then they had I don't know whether they bought, or I suppose they did, a load of cow manure, load the wagons, and the farmers had, I hope they put, the canvas sheet down, lie on the wagon, and the horses would take them home. Being very intelligent animals, find their way back. Yeah, indeed.
when the horse and cart for the milkman was replaced by the float, all the milk personnel, the milk delivery persons, who were all milkmen in those days to all intents, were furious because the float didn't keep up with you.
No.
So they used to load up those 2 carry things with a dozen bottles of milk and walk down the street, plopping 2 on the step, whistle, and the horse comes and catches them up. And you used to have to walk all the bloody way back with them to want to get another. They were livid. Good on you, David. Good to talk to you. 0800 218 2255. My Auntie Anne, my little Auntie Anne, I know. I had 2 Aunties Anne. Yeah, Aunties Anne, that sounds like a craftsman, doesn't it? An artisan. I had 2 Aunties Anne, Big Auntie Anne and Little Auntie Anne. Big Auntie Anne was my great aunt and had a chippy, and Little Auntie Anne was her daughter. So 2 Aunties Anne. There you go. Well, Little Auntie Anne didn't have a chippy. She lived just around the corner from the Co-op stables. Yeah, where the milkmen used to keep their horses. And we used to go round and have a look and go and see my little Auntie Anne, argue with the Monty, the dog, because it was a snappy little kit, argue with Monty the dog, and then go round the corner and say hello to the horses. Big hairy feet, because they were cart horses. Huge hairy feet. They stood, to me, as a little kid, they stood about a mile high. They weren't, I'm sure, but they were big beggars. 0800 218 2255. How do John?
G'day, Alan. Are you okay?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm just ringing up. I've just been listening to you about, I've not while since I spoke to you, just listening to what you said about speeding, and if you hit a child at a certain speed, and they will be hurt, seriously hurt, or die. And why, by and large, I agree with that. You sort of said it as a matter of fact, but there's a number of, if you hit a child at 49 miles an hour, they don't necessarily die. It's not a matter of fact. It depends on how you hit them and whether it's a glancing blow or how you hit them. It's not just a matter of fact. As you hit a child at,
of course it's
not. You said it as a matter of fact. You said it as a matter of fact.
Well, you can't. I can't cover every single permutation of how you might come in collision with the child, but the point I'm trying to get is, do you want to be the person that is the one that day that kills the kid that's going to die tomorrow?
Well, as you say quite often to your listeners, I don't, I've only got what you say to go on. I don't, you said that as a matter of fact. And that is not a matter of fact. It's a matter of lots of different circumstances that may come together. And why, by and large, you will 80% of the time may be right. What you said is technically incorrect.
John, I will accept your pedantry without a shadow of question. You are correct in what you say, but I repeat the question. Who wants to be the one taking that chance that your 50-mile-an-hour collision with a child was a glancing blow?
Well, if you're on a 50-mile-an-hour road, then you're not speeding, are you?
Well, you are. You are driving at speed. And I'm not talking about just breaking the law. I'm talking about driving sensibly. If you're on a road that permits...
If you're on a motorway, Alan, if you're on a motorway, he's driving at 50 miles an hour.
There was an end to that sentence, and the end to the sentence was, if you're on a road that permits 50 miles an hour but happens to have cars parked along the road, don't do 50. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Driving sensibly is about taking into the weather conditions, the visibility, all of those things come into, and the unexpected is always around the corner, and I will stipulate to that definitely. But if you're on a motorway and there's people driving at 50 miles an hour on a motorway, that is driving too slowly, is equally as dangerous as people driving too.
I would challenge that, first of all, but certainly you are entitled to drive at 70 on the motorway. Because of the structure of motorways, it is unlikely that there'll be parked vehicles at the side, and it is unlikely that a child or any other creature really will run out in front of you. It is a different situation, and yes, you're perfectly entitled to drive at 70, and most people would. But it's not dangerous to drive at 50. What is dangerous is the stupid lunatic behind you that thinks you should get a bloody move on.
I think one of my biggest grudges is when you go to join a motorway and people are joining the motorway and they want to join a motorway at 20 miles an hour.
Oh, yes, yes.
And they think when the slip road ends and it goes to the hard shoulder, they think there's a brick wall there. Yes, and one of the most dangerous things to do, in my opinion, is to join a motorway from almost standing start. And that's what some drivers seem to do.
Flow of traffic is a better expression and makes you more accurate. I mean, obviously, if the motorway is empty, it doesn't matter what speed you drive, you join it at. But if the prevailing traffic is moving along at 70, and you think, right, I can go in now because I'm running out of slip road, and that means I can go in, and you pull out in front of somebody doing 70, that is an extremely dangerous thing to do.
And we see that all the time on the motorways, and the people. It's not the middle lane hoggers these days. It's the people who drive in the third lane and will never move from the third lane. And I know you've seen them. It seems to be their right to stay in the third lane, and it almost forces people, which is wrong, to undertake them.
Yeah.
We've seen it. We've all seen it.
It's absolutely diabolical. And, there are people... You're again correct in that driving militantly is dangerous, and that is the person who sits in the outside lane doing 70 miles an hour thinking and demonstrating that I don't need to go any faster than this. I'm entitled to do this speed in this lane, and I am not moving out of this lane. And that is driving militantly. If the middle lane, or indeed the near side lane, is available, they should pull out of the outside lane. It is an overtaking lane, ostensibly. So, the traffic's so busy in many motorways these days that there is no possibility to move over. Now, if that person's doing 70 and doesn't get out of the way, they are driving militantly. They are stopping traffic that wishes to go faster, and they think they're doing a good thing. And one interpretation is that they are. But another interpretation is they're making other drivers angry, and angry drivers are dangerous too. So it's...
Go on.
No, I don't know. I'd finish. Angry drivers are as dangerous as over fast drivers.
Am I right to say it isn't illegal to undertake on a motorway?
It's too broad a question to answer specifically. It is illegal unless, and this is always the one, you can undertake on any road if the traffic in the other lane, the lane that you're in, if you like, is blocked. So if you're on a dual carriageway and it's 40 mile an hour, the traffic's moving along, both lanes are full, but the right-hand lane, you can, when the traffic is moving slowly, you can pass on the inside. But to overtake on the inside, whether that itself is an illegal act, is moot. I'd have to look that up in the traffic laws, and I don't have them. But to drive dangerously or without due care and attention is an illegal act. But it's then a matter of, is it dangerous to pass on the near side? If the outside lane has got somebody in it doing 60 mile an hour on an empty motorway and you decide to pull over to the first lane and pass, you have a defence. Whether it would... It's not. I would imagine it's not an absolute offence. I'm not a lawyer. I can't be sure, but you would say I was travelling. I wanted to travel at the permitted speed. There was somebody obstructing my way in the outside lane. There was no way I could move them, so I came to the near side lane and passed them with care. That would be a defence that I suspect magistrates might listen to.
Right, there's a situation where I live up the road, and it's a mini roundabout. Now, normally you would say on a mini roundabout you give traffic coming to give way to traffic coming from your right hand side. So if you're going to a mini roundabout, traffic coming from your right hand side would have right of way. That's what the highway code says. And it also stipulates, unless notified to do otherwise. Now, there's a road going up to the M6, junction 27, from Shevington to Standish, and the prevailing traffic comes from Standish to Shevington. As I'm going up, the traffic comes from the right-hand side. Now, this mini roundabout, everybody coming from that Standish area will turn right, and they will cut across a mini roundabout. Basically, that's going round the mini roundabout the wrong way. And on their side of the road, there is a give way sign, which says traffic coming from the other direction has priority. But nobody ever seems to take any heed or know what the traffic laws are. They will automatically assume that they've got right of way because they're on the traffic on the other side is coming from the left-hand side. And there's lots of people who don't understand how mini roundabouts or roundabouts work. They just seem to say blindly, if I've got right of way, unless traffic's coming from my right-hand side.
Well, many roundabouts are weird. I'm intrigued that you said there's a give way sign.
On the other side. Yeah, there is.
If we assume the mini roundabout is operating 4 lanes, 4 different
3 lanes
directions. 3, okay.
3 directions.
And there is a give way sign. Where's the give way sign?
The give way sign is from traffic coming, if you know the area, down from Standish, as you would turn right to the M6. So if I was coming up from Shevington, so I'm turning left to go to the motorway.
Okay. If there is a give way sign on just one leg of the mini roundabout, as it were, then that set of drivers must give way, because that's the give way sign.
It's the traffic coming up as the priority, but because everybody's hardwired to believe that traffic coming from your right-hand side is priority, and that's by and large what it says in the highway code. But then in paragraphs it says unless directed to do otherwise.
Hence give way sign.
Hence the give way to traffic coming from the other direction. But,
well, it's a give way sign. It won't say. Will it say? Does it say give way to traffic coming from the other direction?
No, it just says give way. It just says
that's
give way.
Give way. Yeah, you see, give way to traffic coming from the other direction. There's 2 arrows, a red and a black one.
Yeah, it just says a give way. Then you've got the
just a give way sign. So you are required to give way.
But because it's the mini roundabout, everybody says it, and it's probably the same as you. I took my driving test in 1987, and it was a hot day in July, and the 3 questions I got were about smoke, fog, and ice. And that was my 3 highway code questions. So
I took my driving test a lot sooner than you, but I did take my driving instructor's test in the very early 70s. And that was the one where we had 3 pages of bloody questions and all sorts of other stuff, and I had to. It was awful. You had to take a driving instructor examiner out whilst you gave him a lesson. And then they analyse it at the end. I did this and you never corrected me. Oh, dear God.
It was still probably one of the most scariest occasions of my life, having to sit the driving lesson, even as a 17-year-old kid. I still remember it now. It's still one of the most scariest, most nerve-wracking experiences of your life.
Well, you might be right. It was a long, long time ago for me, but good on you, John. I'm glad you've recovered. Have a good night, mate. 0800 218 2255. It's 20 to 1, so you're going to have to get a move on. I'll do Deta or Deta? You tell me.
Deta.
Hello, Deta. What would you like to talk about?
Hi. Well, the last caller was amusing that he actually put me off what I was going to discuss. I can recall taking my driving test in 1972, and that was in an area called Widnes, and you had to take your driving test in Widnes at that time because it was the only examination centre in the area. And on my first driving test, my instructor had told me previously that when you came out of the test centre, if the examiner told you to turn right, then you knew you were going up the dual carriageway from Widnes towards
the St Helens area. If he told you to turn left, then you knew you were going over what was the Runcorn Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar
I'm familiar with the area, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, on my first test, he told me to turn right at the roundabout. And it was quite a large roundabout, actually, at the time. And I was 17. So I looked, and a car went past, dark car, and it went past, and I was sitting there at the roundabout, and the examiner seemed to be, I don't know, sort of drumming his fingers a little bit. So I thought, well, I've got to move on here. And then another car came up, and I thought, oh, I can get out here, because obviously the examiner's getting a bit fed up. So I pulled out, and it ended up that I was in the middle of a funeral procession.
Oh dear. That doesn't help, does it?
Well, the first car was the hearse, and then there was me with sort of L School of Motoring in a red Triumph Toledo in the middle, and then there were the mourners' cars behind, and each time I looked in the mirror, I could see the scowling faces of the mourners behind me. So we all travelled up this dual carriageway. Now, I could have overtaken, but I thought, well, it's rude to overtake a funeral, so I better not do that. And then I thought, well, you know, I'm going at sort of 15, 20 miles an hour. Sorry about that. I'm going about 15, 20 miles an hour here. I don't know what to do. But so I carried on, and I failed my test because I was put down as not keeping up with the flow of traffic.
That's right. What was it? Not taking consideration for the. I can't remember the exact wording now, but when you used to get that big white fail slip, failing to take
that was one, yeah,
failing to take cognizance of the varying traffic and road conditions. That was it.
Yes, it was something like that. Yeah, I think you're probably more correct than I am. But yeah,
well, that is awful.
That wasn't my fault. But the last caller, I thought, I'll have to tell you that little story.
Thank you.
But yeah, the strikes that we're experiencing at the moment, you know, the rail drivers' strikes, the nurses' strikes, the junior hospital doctors' strikes, the lecturers' strikes, and I used to be a lecturer at the university in Liverpool, and I was thinking, you know, they're offering things like 5%, etc. Now, I'm very poorly at the moment, and I'm also very old, and I live alone. I'm paralysed down one side after a heart attack, and whilst I was in hospital, my husband decided to divorce me and sent a letter into the hospital to say he'd changed the locks on the door and to find somewhere else to live when I was discharged. I was paralysed, I had a heart attack, and I was burned because I was hitting the radiator. So things haven't been so good. But it's given me a lot of time to think. And I thought, I wonder, in terms of our politicians, what increases they have had since, say, 2019. What percentage, I wondered, and I don't know if you know or have access to that information, what percentage increases have they had in their salaries since 2019? I'm wondering if it's somewhere between 10 and 13%. And yet, people such as nurses, junior doctors, and I used to manage junior doctors and nurses, etc., because I was an HR manager. And I wonder whether or not the increases in pay for politicians are similar to the demands that are being made by the people who are striking now or threatening strike action.
Well, the first thing that the MPs would say is that they don't set their wages anymore. They're set by a panel, and that panel decides how big that increase will be. And MPs in 2010-11 earned £65,738 wages, if you like. The same the next year and the same the year after that. And then they started to increase. In 2015-16, they went to 74,000. In 16-17, they went to 74,962, and they have progressed on that, not dramatic graph, but an ever-increasing graph until 2021, when their salary was 81,932. It was the same the following year, and in 22-23, it went up to £84,144. And from 23 to 24, the current year for them, it is 86,584. I haven't done the percentages and don't have time to do them now, but those are the increases. And yes, they are considerably better paid than many of the people who are striking presently.
I just wonder then if it's not unfair to expect the salaries of the public sector workers to be able to match that, because why should they be refused discussions if they're only trying to get the same as what the people that they've voted into power are receiving?
Well, I mean, the problem is the word fair. There's no such
exact percentages, but just
there's no such thing as fair, really. It just doesn't exist. Never did, never will.
No.
They let me see if I can do the arithmetic very, very quickly.
All right.
No, it's all right. I've got my calculator out now. 10, 8, 6, 1, 8, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. No, I can't do it in the time.
That's all right.
But they've done all right. They've had a £10,806 increase.
But
in 13
obviously
years.
Maths with me, I couldn't do that off the top of my head, even with a calculator. But if I don't speak to you before, again, I've not ever telephoned you before, but I've listened to you now for the past 3 years whilst I've been alone and in pain. And I so appreciate your honesty and your frankness, rather than listening to other BBC stations, perhaps.
Thank you for that.
They just run to a format, and you can practically predict what they're going to say next, because everything is formatted by their producers, and it's quite obvious. And I think that you're the last bastion of honesty and truthfulness on the BBC.
I don't think I'm either honest or truthful, but anyway, thank you very much. The pay rise that the MPs have had over the period I quoted, which is I think 13 years, was somewhere in the region of 10% overall. So that's over from starting back in 2010 to 2023. But thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
Have a good night. How do Sid?
Hello, sir. I was going through some old audio tapes a couple of nights ago, and I came across one of the presenters. I can't even remember which channel he was on. Station he was on. And whether it was City. And I thought to myself, whatever happened to him? Norman Thomas.
Norman Thomas? Yeah. Well, a number of things happened to him. He left Radio City, and he worked in various different stations, and then eventually passed away, I'm afraid.
Oh, hang on, that's right. I vaguely heard that at the time. Yeah. The other one was some of the lads were getting a bit involved in a conversation there the other night, and they were talking about the amateur football cup, and someone said it was won by Rylands, and someone said to me, "Where's that?" I said, "It's an area of Warrington, isn't it?" I couldn't think.
Well, Rylands it's not an area of Warrington. It was a large manufacturer of wire and nails in Warrington, Rylands Wireworks. And they had a very good football team because they had a very good works leisure centre.
I made a mistake there. I thought I had at the time. I couldn't even think where it was, and then as you say, it rings a bell now.
Yeah, well, they were very good. They had good teams. They had a good cricket team, but then they were assisted, if you like. They weren't professionals, but the club was subsidised to a great extent in the old days.
I was a lorry driver, for years. Many times I used to pass through. I used to go up there to different places like Crossfields and what have you. And, everyone assumes that you're an expert on the area, which I'm not. The only connection is my mother was born there over 100 years ago.
Yeah, well, I was born in Warrington, not far from Rylands Rec, as we used to call it, their recreation centre, and they had good teams. It was a cracking record. They had a nice club and all sorts, some good acts on there. There was a great big allotment and cricket club, cricket pitch and football pitches and rugby pitches and all the rest of it.
Except the name on the front of the bus didn't need the indicator. That's why I assumed it was an area.
They might well on the screen thing. Yes, it might well have said Rylands because they had lots of workers came from Liverpool and all over. Rylans.
Anyway, I've been educated. Thank you very much.
Well, I've spent my life being educated, and you've contributed, Sid. So good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. 0800 218 2255 if you want to join us, but you'll have to be a bit sharpish because we're very nearly done. How do Sam?
Hi, Alan. I totally forgot about your show today. My car battery died, and I was too occupied with that, and so I sort of missed most of your show today. I don't know what you guys. So, I was going to cats. When cats go near trees and objects and they do like this weird pose and they spray something. Why do they do that?
Yeah, they're leaving a message. They're marking their territory.
So why is he... Because my cat never used to do that before. Now, so around the house, when he goes out, like locally around the house, he does that. But when I take him like other places, he doesn't do that. Because he doesn't test it.
Well, other places possibly. I mean, I don't understand the intricacies of cats' minds. I don't think anybody does. But what they're doing when they do that, spraying as it's called, is they're marking their territory. Now, if you take him elsewhere, it may well be that when he or she is elsewhere, he recognises that he's not in his territory, and if he starts spraying, he might end up in a fight. I don't know.
Oh, is it because he's trying to find his way back home? Because he doesn't near the house.
I can't speak for the cat, but my knowledge ends that they are marking their territory. So they're saying to other cats, "Do not come hunting here. This is my hunting space."
Oh, okay.
So they're saying, "This is mine."
My cat is a domestic. It's an indoor cat.
Well, yeah, but there's no such thing as a domesticated cat. They're wild animals.
Yeah, but he's recently doing that, and he's like, his behaviour's changed since he's marking his territory. His behaviour's changed a lot, and I don't know if I should see a behaviour therapist because.
Well, there's no point taking a cat to a behaviour therapist, for God's sake. What are they going to do? Have a consultation? They can't. They can't speak.
I know. I didn't mean exactly a behaviour. Something. Just get some sort of advice from someone. Because when my cat goes into the garden, I can't have him roaming around everywhere, marking his territory. And when he's marking his territory, every time he goes out, recently he's doing that. And when he's doing that, he's a bit cautious, and he basically just doesn't enjoy his time out when he does that around the garden.
Well, you can't really stop him any more than you can stop him purring or stop him stretching his claws on your furniture or anything else. He's a cat. That's what they do.
Yeah, his behaviour's changed. And I'm very concerned. Like, I don't know if it's anything to do with the territorial marking or if it's just growing up, I guess. I don't know.
I've no idea. He's a cat.
Yeah.
Nobody understands cats. Anyone that says he understands cats is a stupid liar.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Have a good one, Sam. Meow, as some might say. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255 will only serve you well if you choose to join us tonight after 10 o'clock. 10 till 1, of course, in the time-honoured way of this programme. I won't be here next weekend. I've already told you this. All the weekend after, all the weekend after, all the weekend after. I will be back on the weekend that begins the 1st of July, and you'll be more than welcome to join us then. But the programme will still be here with either Connor or Stacy presenting, with the team behind them and all the rest of it, and doing it the way they do it, which I suspect you'll find almost certain more pleasing and better. But there you go. Nothing I can do about that. Okay, I won't be here. But I will be tonight between 10 and 1. So join us then if you so desire. I'm going to take my cat to a behaviour therapist. I think there would be more success if the cat took the owner to the behaviour therapist. The owner has to adapt to the cat's ways, because I promise you the cat sure as hell isn't going to. Must be why I like him. I've been Beswick. You, of course, have been brilliant. See you tonight at 10. Till then, have a cracking Sunday. Ta-da.
BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Matthew Carter. Initial investigations into the rail accidents in eastern India, which killed at least 288 people, suggest a signalling error may have been to blame. 3 trains collided in the incident. The Indian Prime Minister said those responsible would be severely punished. Dababrata Mahanti from the Hindustan Times has been to the crash site and said local hospitals have been overwhelmed.
Almost 500 people came, and they had all grievous injuries. Somebody had head injury, somebody had broken arms, broken rib cages, and all of them suffering from trauma. It was very difficult for all these people, for passengers. All these people were injured in the accident.
The Cabinet Office has warned Boris Johnson that he could lose public funding for his legal representation at the COVID inquiry if he deliberately undermines the government. In extracts of a letter published by the Sunday Times, Mr Johnson is told that he'll have to submit any witness statements to officials so redactions can be applied. The Cabinet Office said the letter in no way prevented Mr Johnson from giving the evidence he wanted to provide. Surrey police say 31 protesters were arrested in connection with plans to disrupt the Epsom Derby, including one who ran onto the track as the race began. The group Animal Rising had publicly threatened to cancel or severely delay the horse race. President Zelensky has said Ukraine is ready to launch a counter-offensive to recapture territory from occupying Russian forces. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he suggested Ukraine would still like certain weapons. Danny Eberhard reports.
For months, there's been speculation about when Ukraine might begin another concerted attempt to drive Russian forces out of Ukrainian land they control. Now, President Zelensky has signalled that Ukraine is, on balance, ready. But Mr. Zelensky told the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine wants more air defences, especially US-made Patriot missiles. Launching a counter-offensive without air superiority was very dangerous, he stressed. Russia, meanwhile, is contending with further shelling in Belgorod, close to the border with Ukraine.
A football match at the stadium of the Argentine club River Plate in Buenos Aires has been abandoned after a fan fell to his death from the grandstand. An investigation has been opened, but the club said no third parties had been involved and there had been no clashes in the stadium at the time of the fall. Here, Manchester City have scored the fastest ever goal in an FA Cup final, beating Manchester United 2-1 to lift the trophy at Wembley. The club's manager is Pep Guardiola.
And now is the first day first time we can to talk about the treble, but it's about winning the Champions League. But against United, it was special for our city, for our fans, and we performed really well, really well, and very pleased.
The win keeps alive City's hopes of completing the treble. They face Inter Milan in the Champions League final in Istanbul on Saturday. BBC News, it's 1:03.